This is Gene Krebs.
Hi there. Oh. Whoop. Whoosh.
And we're high on Ohio.
You don't want the tax code to make an undue influence, typically, on the kind of decisions that people make. We want people to be able to make personal decisions about what kind of jobs they have, the income that they do, where they invest, and things of that nature, what they buy. We want them to be able to make that decision in as honest a way as possible. And whenever you do things with the tax code that favors things or disfavors things, you're actually putting your finger on the scale. Government should remain in its proper role. There are things that it can do, and there's things that we have a great deal of skepticism about. And we don't lobby. What we do, though, is we can talk about policy issues writ large.
Okay.
And so what we can do is we can say, do we think something makes sense as a matter of policy in a general sense? But we never say you should vote for this bill, you shouldn't vote for this bill. But we think we should be able to educate. I mean, that's what a think tank does, is be able to provide that information in context within which legislators and policymakers can make decisions. We very much recognize that Ohio has had a huge chasm in terms of who it's been able to, how we have coverage for certain individuals. And we understand that the lack of insurance is a problem for a good chunk of people in the state. So we know that something has to be done. It's not enough to say no to something and then not try to offer some legitimate alternatives. So, but we don't think Medicaid, as it's currently constructed in the Medicaid expansion, as it's now occurred, was the right path to take. The fear that we have is that Medicaid could become very much like old welfare was before it was turned into the reforms of the mid-1990s that turned it into TANF. We think the temporary assistance for needy families, we think that this has a chance. We've seen evidence in other states where people have dropped out of the labor force, largely because of government insurance programs. We don't think that's a moral thing to do, to create what could amount to a crutch and a permanent safety hammock as opposed to a true safety net. And I think that we do have a need to assure that we aren't just dropping people out. I mean, quite frankly, if you walk around the State House in downtown, you can see some folks that are probably homeless, and that's a real tragedy. And some of these folks, you can tell there's something not quite right, and that's always a sad thing. Well, I think one thing that we do is we try to coordinate the care with, we have insurance companies, we try to get people into the managed care, and I know that's part of what Medicaid is attempting to do now, is working to do that. But we have already a decent amount of resources that come in, again, from the federal government. There's several block grants that come in from the feds that goes exclusively to this. I know the state has done a bit of picking up of some of, I believe, the local money to match stuff to draw down additional federal dollars. And I think that there is an effort to try to already do some of that. I do think that the funding is going to always be an issue. We're going to always have to have some of a conversation there about that. Our fear consistently is that we can talk about that group, we can talk about how do we fund that without having to wrap that into the overarching Medicaid issue we were talking about earlier. Because I think that we have a lot of people, out of that population that we're expanding to, I don't think that we're looking at that the mental health issue, where that is part of that population. I don't believe that that is the majority of the population.
Right.
And we're not necessarily saying it's time to redo institutionalization or anything necessarily, but that may be a conversation that some people have. You know, we have to be careful not to be penny wise and pound foolish on this.
Okay.
And I think that you do run some risks that we've seen folks discharged. We don't want to see things like, again, I mentioned that one case. We don't want to see what happened just the other day
in Virginia,
with State Senator Craig Deed's son. There's a very bad story coming out about that. I need to give the administration a credit. I believe what they've tried to do with raising some of that local levy to match the dollars that come through the department, if my understanding is correct, the state is taking, since the Kasich administration has come into office, a more active role in the management on the mental health side of things. I think we probably are going to have to continue going in that direction because you do raise some of the fractionalization issues.
Right.
And we know from local governments, there's some interesting questions about whether or not we have too many, what we need to do about that, and if we address those issues for other types of things, for economic competitiveness, that's going to then impact, though, the delivery mechanisms on how the services are delivered. Now, there's an awful lot of questions about how we spend money at the local level and the number of entities that we have and the efficiencies that we can have there, and what does that mean for taxes. So I was trying to get some information from a township. I don't remember the name of the township now, but there's a series of townships in Marion County. And you know, I was just trying to get information about what their purchases were, what their budget really was, and what they were spending money on. And so I'd reached out to the fiscal officer. Obvious, easy thing to do. Public records request, they have to give you the information. Well, they didn't give me the information, and it was handwritten, so this isn't a spreadsheet. I mean, I guess I was anticipating that it would be literally an Excel file or on a CD, or at least a printout of an Excel spreadsheet. It wasn't. It was handwritten lines, handwritten numbers, and a little note, and it was basically on a napkin. So now we're seeing a township that's really small who sends stuff on napkins, and we're having a city that can't produce, or at least certainly not in an easy way, produce very simple information that should be as easy as pie to get and kick out into an Excel spreadsheet or a common or limited file or something like that. It should be simple. It's going to be pulling teeth for a while to get there, but the only way people can know what they're getting is to get the information, and then as we move forward, we got to be able to put it into a format where you can make the apples to apples comparisons, or as close to it as possible. We have a real challenge, I think, in America and Ohio as well. Ohio's had a really rough economy and a lot of challenges. We need to make ourselves more robust to defend against the inevitability of the unknown.
For more about the Center for Community Solutions or their publications, please visit www.communitysolutions.com.